How's it going, everyone? My name is Kevin Rodas, and this is my Badm 3020 video presentation on political and economic ideologies. Today, we'll be taking a look at classical liberalism and why I believe it to be the most compelling way to move the social and business environment of the United States as of right now. So let's get down to business. Well, first off, just to define classical liberalism, it is a political ideology that seeks to have civil liberties overseen by the rule of law with a large emphasis on economic freedom. I'm drawn to this ideology in particular because of its emphasis on the individual. The movement is driven by the pursuit of life, liberty, and property. In regard to the property aspect, it's this notion of how much government should be able to intervene in our personal values. And in my opinion, they shouldn't intervene at all, especially when it comes to us politically. However, I do think that the government should intervene in the case of me, an individual, posing harm to, say, another individual. I also believe that government should always abide by the rule of law, which is a higher set of standards that determine how they act and how they should rule on certain issues. The rule of law, to me, is comprised of the universal virtues and rights that grant us our life, liberty, and property. And these can be seen mostly in situations such as Congress finding itself being extremely polarized within its two chambers when the president vetoes a bill out of spite or when the Supreme Court rules something in a very unjust manner. Another belief of mine is that there shouldn't be a huge gap between the individual and the state. There can be organizations that fill that gap in when given the proper resources and powers, and they can oftentimes solve certain social issues in its respective area because there is that attention to detail that is tailored to those belonging to that community. Sometimes, even at the local level, the mayor or city council fail to do something that benefits all citizens. These organizations can be anything from a local church to a nonprofit organization that is run by the ordinary Joe for the ordinary Joes. By doing this, we are not restricted by the same obstacles that stand in the way of government agencies and bureaucracies, and can work around the circumstances of several individuals without endangering the whole state. This now brings me to the free markets, that the national economic exchange should be an organic relationship between an individual with another individual, or group of individuals for that matter. Governments shouldn't have a say in how they conduct business, nor set limitations or restrictions on them, such as tariffs, taxes, or quotas. Growing up, I learned that the individual is the best judge of their own interest. I was always taught a noble leader guides its people into the right direction and will recommend what they should do, but never force them into doing anything, especially if it's something that they're not comfortable doing or they're not willing to do. I was always told that the world should be a fair playing field that gives everyone the equal opportunity to gain success or to go from one social economic class to the next. One of the values of classical liberalism is having one's doubts of power, and this I relate to my skepticism on government and those in it. Power is oftentimes the ability to manipulate someone to do as you please. I see this a lot nowadays with politicians who have made it clear that their main priority is to gain re-election and to gain capital to fund that following campaign. Just this year alone, I've seen politicians such as former Representative Duncan Hunter Jr. of the 50th District of California misuse nearly $300,000 in campaign funds for his travel and personal expenses. Duncan Hunter now faces 11 months in prison once this whole coronavirus clears up. Another personal experience would be government forcing us to do acts that they think will benefit us, such as paying an absurd amount of taxes in California for just about everything. An example is just leasing or buying a car. Now, I'm not saying that we should just do away with taxes, but a little more transparency goes a long way, and it's nice to know where those funds are being allocated instead of just being told that they're going to go towards the public need. My history and political science classes have shaped my view of the world into thinking that everyone deserves equal opportunity and government should not be so involved with the individual's life, especially if that government is a corrupt one. Just last year, I took a congressional politics course here at LMU that comprised of a real-life simulation of the current House of Representatives. And in that, I played Republican Duncan Hunter Jr., and I got an insight as to how money worked in government, for my character in particular. I had to base my decisions, votes, and bills written, sometimes contradicting to his actual beliefs, around the accountability that was placed on him by his lobbyists and those funding his political endeavors. One example was that Duncan Hunter, being a very pro-veteran guy, since he is one, when it came down to voting on a bill that cut on veterans' healthcare benefits from the federal budget in order to reallocate more funds to the national security effort on the border wall, he had no choice but to vote against the veterans because one of his biggest donors is an interest group in the military intelligence sector. So when we put these ideals into play in the actual world that we live in, people oftentimes will confuse individualism with worrying about the common good, and that the individual sometimes doesn't matter. Free markets can be abused and taken advantage of, and people will always want to gain more because they can never get enough. People always think that more money equals more happiness or self-fulfillment. People also like to be flexible when it comes to free speech, only when it's to their advantage. When it comes to an individual having a problem with another individual, they will oftentimes use government to intervene and sometimes even result in an unjust settlement. Now, in an ideal world, all individuals matter and are all deserving of respect. Government will regulate businesses in that they won't become a monopoly and will refrain from using unethical business tactics to maximize their profits. Government will always provide the basic public goods, transportation, infrastructure, public works, and perhaps even healthcare. And with a truly free market, there would be an increase in overall prosperity, reduces poverty levels, grants more jobs, and provides the exact goods that individuals want to buy or have in their lives. This, of course, promotes free trade and open competition. When it comes to free speech, individuals can also utilize government to protect them when it comes to things like copyrights and patents. At the time of this recording, April 2020, we are in the midst of a global pandemic due to the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19, and have seen drastic changes in our society as a whole. So I think this classical liberalism is an ideal ideology to abide by both socially and economically, because with not everyone being able to work from home if they have a job that is labor intensive, or substitute teachers not being able to substitute a teacher, or the people who are unable to pay rent and bills the next couple of months, it is now a good idea for the government to do everything that is in the best possible interest for the individual, no matter what social class or status they fall under. And when it comes to decision making, we cannot allow chaos to rule what happens. There first needs to be a common understanding that government will do right by their citizens in these times of despair, and allow for individuals to have the free speech and protection of free property to adjust in the times of uncertainty that this virus has produced. So we, a society made up of individuals, we are not at all that far off from this type of thinking, as we are seeing in government trying to help stimulate the economy and providing the public needs of the country, such as hospitals right now. And we are seeing that they are allowing businesses and corporations to have a little bit of leeway to do as they see fit to help accommodate people, especially people who are financially impacted by the current situation. With that being said, classical liberalism also opens all to the idea that everyone is subject to their own opinion and beliefs, which in turn creates a universal understanding of one another that translate into a more peaceful environment that provokes everyone to work together in a way that's constructive and beneficial to all. So what does this make me think about politics and economics? Well, it's simple. You got to take the money out of politics. Then people would join for the right reasons instead of selfish ones. If you take a look at the current situation and begin to realize how much money is actually being circulated in politics and how much interest groups are influencing what politicians do, and obviously the politicians having their own agenda, it's madness. Government must let things run at its own course, but to keep an eye out for injustices such as monopolies being created and other illegal or unethical business practices. Once government is free of the chains of money, it will soon act as its intended role to be available as a mediator when needed, to provide basic public goods, allow for a truly free market, protect private property, honor individualism, and to safeguard the life, liberty, and property of each and every single citizen of the United States of America. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is classical liberalism. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.